My name is Kadler and welcome back to Let's Learn Stellaris Episode 2. In the first episode, we learned how to build an empire to get a new game going. In this episode, we're going to be looking at the initial interface that you're presented with when you start your new game. There's a lot of information to take in. We're going to try to run through this pretty quick. We can delve into more specifics later on, but this will just kind of give you an understanding of what you're looking at when you first start a new game. Well, to understand anything else, you need to understand the three types of income that you have coming in at any given time to support your empire. You have energy credits, minerals, and influence, and they're all just displayed right here, easy to see at the top of the screen. Energy credits are gained by having things built on your home world that produce energy, and you can mine planets for energy. The minerals, kind of the same thing. You can build items on your home world and other worlds that you take over. And you can also mine planets and asteroids for the minerals. And then influence is kind of a statically gained resource. You gain it through just basically existing. You control everything there is around you, so you have influence. I've seen influence range anywhere between 0, because you lose influence when you build certain items in the game, all the way up to like 7, 8. So it's a pretty small number, so you kind of have to watch what you do with your influence at any given time. Well, now that we understand that you have these three basic resources coming in, let's jump over and look at the government hotkey. So on the first tab of the government hotkey, you are basically looking at an overview of what your empire is. There's the two ethics we selected in the last video. We have individualist and fanatic materialist. This is where you can look at your naval capacity, how much edicts are costing you, and what the duration of those edicts are, any temporary modifiers that you currently have, when the next election is going to be coming up to boot this leader out and bring in a new leader, and any ruler traits that you currently have. So we have a space miner, which is reducing the cost of building mining stations, and explorer, which is going to reduce the cost of our shipbuilding for science ships. Let's jump over to the budget tab. The budget tab tells you how much income you have coming in and how much you have coming out and where the income's going. So we currently have 13 coming in. We have 4.35 going out. So we have a net gain of 8.64. So as you can see, some of the things that are costing us some of our energy credits are the ship maintenance is costing us a 2.22 or 2.20. And you can see it's broken down between the corvettes, which are our military fleet, the construction ship, and the science ship. Our army maintenance, which is 0.15, that's the army currently sitting on the planet protecting it, and any building maintenance, which is 1 per building. And then down here you can see different economic effects that are taking a toll on either raising or lowering whatever your current balance is. So if we jump over to the policies tab is where you can really fine tune the way you want to run your empire. You can look at things such as how you afford to pay for the war. Different types of slavery options. You have prohibited and allowed. We personally can't have any slavery because we took the individualistic trait. If you go down to purge is where you basically just eliminate population off of a planet. We can't do it because we have collectivist or fanatic collectivist, but you have options based on the type of government that you chose when you created your empire. Orbital bombardment, you have light, limited, and full. Those are just different ways your ships can blast to crap the planet that's below them when you're in the middle of a war to make it easier for your armies to take it over. Your migration tab. This is where you can determine how you want people to migrate in and out of your empire. You can prohibit it so nobody can move anywhere unless you tell them. Primary species only, which would be our starting fox little looking guy species, or free migration where aliens can come in, they can go out. It doesn't really matter. Resettlement. This is where you can basically force people to move from one planet to another. So if you start a new colony and you want to get that colony up and running quicker, you can basically force people through resettlement to go to that colony. But since we have individualists, we can't do that. Voting rights, we have elitism, which the pops can't vote, but the leaders of the empire will decide on who rules. Based on the type of government that you chose when you created your empire, there'll be different options here. If we look at the leadership, only primary species can become leaders in our empire. And the first contact protocol, you can either be peaceful or aggressive, depends on how you want to play. We're going to leave it on peaceful. We don't need to be starting no wars right off the bat. And these are the current list of edicts that we have. You can get new edicts through research. So we have information quarantine, which allows no ethical divergence. Well, it lowers the percentage of a chance, and it also lowers our research speed. So everything kind of has a plus and minus. These will change throughout the game, so this is something you're going to want to keep an eye on if you feel that you might be able to tweak your empire in a different way to make it a little bit better. Then if we look at the demographics, we got plus 5% mining, plus 5% energy credits, plus 5% minerals, and that's currently the only kind of modifiers that we have. And it tells you why you have that modifier. We have it because we have a plutocratic oligarchy. So make sure you kind of keep an eye on these, because it'll tell you what's changing it and why. So if you notice you're losing a lot of engineering output for some reason, you can come here and it'll tell you exactly why you're losing it. So moving on to the Empire tab, this tab basically shows you everything that's going on in your empire. The first tab is planets. It'll show you all the planets that you currently have. We currently have one. It'll let you know how much energy your planet is producing or losing in some instances, how many minerals, if there's an influence modifier on the planet, and then different kinds of research. It also tells you how many squares you have on the planet. We'll see that in a minute, so remember planet size. And the food surplus for the planet. We're producing 10, we're consuming 7. So if we go over to the leaders tab, these are all the leaders you currently have available to you. Governors run planets, scientists run science vessels and do one of the 3 researches. Admirals run fleets, and generals run ground armies. We'll take a look at these guys a little bit more in detail as we need them. We go to the factions tab. Sometimes when your empire gets to a certain size, factions want to break off and leave you. This is where you would see any dissenting factions and how they're growing. And when we get to that stage, I'll bring you back to the screen and we'll discuss how you can get rid of those factions or suppress them. So next tab over is the contacts tab. This tab is where you see everything that you currently have going on as far as other empires and other species throughout the galaxy. So if we look at the empires tab, we currently only know of one empire. That's us, because we're the best. We haven't found anybody else yet. If we go to the species tab, we currently still only know of one species. But this would list all the different empires and give you a bunch of different options on how you'd like to communicate and act with other species or other empires, and different choices you can make with trades and setting up alliances. Once we find another civilization we can really work with, I'll bring you back to the Empires tab. We'll discuss all the options there. If we look at the species tab, this will bring up all the different species that we have discovered. Some species are intelligent, some are not. You can separate by type, how many population there are, and you can look at the traits that they currently have. So if we close out of that, we'll move over to the ship designer tab. This is where you get to really get down in the nitty gritty and how you want to design your ships. You can design new ships. You can use one of the auto-populated ships, which will just give you a basic overlay of the ships. I'll go into ship creation a little bit more when we get some upgrades and kind of show you how to read this menu a little bit better. Situation log, this is where anything that happens in your empire will show up. Anything that's kind of like a long-standing quest, if you will, or any specialized research you can do, or any long-standing research projects will all end up in the situation log. Victory, you have 2 types of victory, domination and conquest. Domination is you can win the game by owning 40% of all colonizable planets, or you can conquest by basically destroying or subjugating all other empires. So you can always come here and just kind of check which one you're progressing to better. We move on one more, technology. There's 3 different routes for technology. There's physics, society, and engineering, and you can set a research for each individual one. Over here, you'll see the modifier. The modifier will be completely ranked to the rank of whichever scientist is working on it, as well as any outside influence that we have, like special research, or we discovered something that'll give us a boost. So here we go. If we click select research on the physics tab, you see we have 3 options. We can research a module, which goes on our orbital platform. We can research administrative AI, which gives us increased research speed, or fusion power, which will let us build the fusion reactor. We're going to start off by researching the research speed just to kind of give us a leg up on everything. So as you can see, it tells you what type of research it is. This is computing, and how long it's going to take. It's going to take 48 months at 5.10 progress per month. So we'll do this for all of them. We'll just head down to select research here. We're going to build out a colony ship. Well, we're going to research how to build colony ships, and that falls under the New Worlds research path. You have biology and you have military theory, but colony ships are really going to come in handy so we can expand the size of our empire. Next is the engineering tab. Engineering tab, you have things such as industry and voidcraft and more industry. You'll see that there's other options in these little tiny bubbles here to kind of show you what the different trees do. We have engineering facility, improved spaceport, and powered exoskeletons. We're going to start with improved spaceport because that'll let us build better types of military vessels, and let us build like a Corvette assembly yard to make it cheaper and faster to build up our military fleets. So now that we have our research set, you can just X out of that, and that's all you have to do. And it'll let you know when it's done, that it'll pop up and let you know that you have newer research to assign. So we covered already the energy credits, the minerals, and the influence. Let's move over to these three. These are physics research, society research, and engineering research. What these are is they're modifiers to how much this gets adjusted. So if you look down here at the research progress, we are doing 5.1 progress per month. That number directly ties to how many research points that you currently have. So we're currently gaining 5 a month. So say we mined a planet, we put up an observational post over another planet, and that gives us +3. This number would go up to 8. We'd be getting 8 research per month, 8 research progress per month, and that would change our overall base and how quick this gets done. And you have one for everything. You got physics, society, and engineering to tie to physics, society, and engineering. Moving over one more, you have strategic resources. Those are limited resources that are found throughout the galaxy. They're very rare and very coveted by other alien empires. So we'll go over those when we start going through the Let's Play. I'll make a Let's Learn and kind of jump into another game and show you what that's all about. Directly control planets. This lets you know how many planets you can currently control before bad things start happening. You're only one man. You can only rule so many planets in a given time. So you can change that based on different technologies, government buildings, things of that sort. And your naval capacity lets you know how many naval ships you can have worth of military fleet. So we can currently have 12 units worth of naval capacity. And if you hover over it, it tells you why. You start with 5, we get 1 more from having a population on our planet, and 6 from having a spaceport. So if we go down, we can zoom in and we can kind of look at the spaceport here. The spaceport can be found under the planetary summary, which is on your hotkey number 1. This is the overview of any planet that you want to look at. So if you start with the main tab, planet summary, it gives you the name of the planet, what type of planet it is, how habitable it is, and then these are the different resources on the planet. You have 5 energy, you have 2 mineral, 5 food, you have 2 resources for physics, 2 resources for society, and 1 for engineering. You can change who's currently governing the planet, and you can change, sorry about that, you can change planet-specific edicts, which only affect that planet. Unlike when you go to the government edicts, under the policies, that affects your entire empire. If you go to these edicts, it's planet specific. All right, so we can look at the surface of the planet. As you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 population, and you'll see those little buildings behind them. What those buildings are planet specific buildings. So say we click on this empty area right here. It's just an undeveloped chunk of land. So we can go and build. So we can build a science lab, which will give you an additional physics, society, and engineering, or you can build a hydroponics farm if you need more food. A mineral silo increases the overall amount of minerals you can hold. So if you hover over the minerals tab at the top, we're currently storing 200 out of the 5,000 possible that we can store. So you really don't need mineral silos till later in the game. You can build a mining network, which will give you 2 more minerals, and a power plant, which will give you 3. Now each square, sometimes the squares will have naturally based resources that can be collected. So say we need more physics research, we can just pick this little guy up, move him up there, and we're now collecting 1 additional physics research instead of the 1 additional food. Now what you could do is, if it has a food modifier to begin with, you can just build something that's very similar on top of it so you don't lose that food. So say I want to build a hydroponics farm. We click on the hydroponics farm, it's going to build 2 more food on top of the 1 there is. So this square will eventually give us 3 food. Now say we want to put the food here instead, and this one currently has a society research, but we want to have it have food instead. The game will warn you to let you know that you will permanently lose the 1 society research if you put a hydroponics farm on there. So it's kind of smart to try to match what's currently already naturally available with the building that you would want to put in place. And from this tab, if you click on it, you can look at the individual population that's on it. You can resettle them, purge them, you can enslave them, you can demolish, replace, or deactivate whatever buildings are on there, and you can easily upgrade the buildings as well. So moving on to the armies tab, you can see we currently have the first Colonial Watch, which is a defense army. This is where you can look at recruiting additional armies, such as assault and defense troops. You could change what type of orbital bombardment you wish to do to a planet. We don't want to bombard our own planet, so these are kind of options you're going to look at when you're attacking another planet. And then if we go to the Spaceport tab, this will tell you what we currently have orbiting the space platform. You can see that at the Spaceport we have a laser defense module. You can go into the empty module, and eventually you'll research different type of modules that you can place into your spaceport. As you can see that there's 7 different module slots. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, there's 7 module spots, which means you have 7 different upgrades available for your spaceport. So if we go to the build tab, as you can see, we can eventually upgrade to spaceport number 2. And that'll just give you more options as far as what type of ships you can build and different types of options you can put into the module slots. And from here you can build additional corvettes, which fall into the military fleets, construction ships, and science ships. Over here on the right you can see the date. We have the game paused, the plus and minus to increase the speed, and down here at the bottom you can do detailed maps. You can go quickly to your home planet. You can search for a given galaxy if you would like. You can have multiplayer chat if you're playing a multiplayer game. The help pane, which is wonderful, it takes you straight to the wiki. So in case you want to search for something really fast on the fly, just type it into the search bar and it is usually pretty good about helping you find it. And then the very last one will give you all of your options to leave the game. Some hotkeys that aren't really described yet is if you hit M, it'll back you all the way out. And as we scroll out, we can see just how vast this game is. There are 1,000 different star systems in this little circular cluster, and we make up just a tiny itty bitty little piece of that. The green is what we currently know of in our influence and how far our realm is currently expanding. And then the stars outside of that are obviously things we haven't researched. So what we did is we just kind of gave you a little rundown of what the interface looked like. If you have any questions, feel free, leave a comment in the comments down below. Feel free to subscribe to the channel. We will be doing more Let's Learns as we go along. Next episode, we're going to start by just kind of figuring out what's going on in our own solar system and how to read what the science vessel shows when we survey any given solar system. My name's Kadler. Thank you again, and I hope